For sure. And then at the age of 17, he immigrated first to Bristol and then the Bahamas. And this fella was out in the Bahamas for quite a while. And while he was in the Bahamas, he came up with the Darien scheme. The Darien scheme was to set up a colony in Panama, which would help establish trade between the Atlantic and the Pacific. Now, this guy had this in his head for a really long time. And I think that's really
he seemed to have been consumed with it, right? I mean, this was something he probably, while in the Bahamas, he probably thought, hey, there is this land that essentially connects North and South America, right? And as everyone knows today, right? Again, this is where present day Panama is. And I'm sure if you hadn't before the pandemic, you definitely heard of the Panama Canal during the pandemic, especially when there was that disastrous, blockade, right? That essentially affected all of, global, supply chains last year. So, that just shows you the strategic importance of that portion of the globe. And so William quite rightfully just thought to himself, hey, whoever controls this is going to essentially be controlling a massive chunk of trade, right? So yeah, he was consumed with this. And Sibel, we were talking before we hit record about how, he tried to get a bunch of people and entities to buy into the scheme. So you just want to take us down a bit of that journey?
I think it's fascinating. So while he was in the Bahamas, he becomes a business expert. So the whole idea with the Darien scheme is that he's thinking you connect the Atlantic trade to the Pacific, and then you can connect into the Far East. Okay. He then returns to Europe, and he first hits up the King, James II of England, to try and do the Darien scheme. He gets turned down. He then goes to the Holy Roman Empire. Can you imagine walking to the Vatican and being like, Your Holy Eminence, have I got a business idea for you? He gets shot down, and then he goes to the Dutch, and he gets shot down from there. After these three huge entities turn him down, and I think it sounds like he only didn't go to the Spanish.
No. Nobody goes to the Spanish.
No one from the British area ever goes to the Spanish.
No. What are you kidding? No.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing in all our stories. You notice this. There's just like this deep enmity.
But hey, I mean, another reason why he couldn't have gone to the Spanish was essentially he was proposing to take over land that already kind of belonged to the Spanish, right? Because the Spanish had already sort of claimed that piece of land anyway, and to them it was known as New Granada, right? So he wasn't going to go up to them and say, "Hey, do you want to buy a chunk of stuff you already own?" You know what I mean? So yeah, sure.
Fair.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. Makes perfect
sense.
Sense.
And the fact that, as a British or Scottish or whatever, the Spanish were just not people you would talk to. Unless, of course, you were, trying to do a rapprochement with them, which incidentally was sort of happening in this period as well, with the king.
That was James II's whole deal. Yeah. And we talked about this on the episode with what's his
Sir Walter Raleigh.
Sir Walter Raleigh, the two-timer in the Tower of London.
Yes. And so again, just to create the scene here, right? This was a period of time where Scotland and England were in a personal union. Sibel, you know what a personal union is?
No, please explain that. That's very interesting.
All right, so this means that England and Scotland operated as two different entities, but they shared a monarch, right? So they shared one monarch. However, they operated two different parliaments, two different stathoods, just completely different, right? And incidentally, over the preceding century, 3 times they had tried to unify both entities into one great kingdom, but a lot of opposition, so it never went through, right? So this was the backdrop. And so England, obviously, with colonies and slaves and all kinds of things going on, empire building, they were looking really robust, right? They were doing really good.
Right.
However, just up north, Scotland wasn't having any such luck. They didn't have any of that slavey money, right? They didn't have any of that colonialism money, right, either, right? So they were suffering. They had gone through setbacks. Their crops had been failing. There was this huge winter situation that had further, worsened the economy. There was a 7-year period in that time that was specifically and particularly disastrous for the Scottish economy. So things were not looking good, right? And
very interesting context.
Sibel,
thank you for
exactly.
that.
And Sibel, you said, and I remember this vividly when we did the episode in Sarahhow, that the easiest marks for harebrained schemes are often people who are already desperate, right? So enter William Paterson, right? So I'm just going to pass this back to you, because that was the fertile soil, right, on which he landed, and then he was able to then do what he did. So
thank you for that. That's amazing. All right, so let's quickly jump back. Sir William Paterson goes to the Dutch. The Dutch say, we're not down for the Darien scheme. He moves to London. He goes back into business, which is what he was doing in the Bahamas, and he makes a lot of money. Incidentally, trading slaves in the West Indies.
Right.
Why do slaves keep coming up? Anyways.
I mean...
No, not in the sense that... Do you
want a real answer?
I know the answer. It's a horrible answer. It's just, it's frustration that this is such a... Like, this is how everyone was making money. It's disgusting. Anyways.
And they refine it so well. They say he was doing foreign trade. Imagine just labeling something as horrible as slavery, right? And just saying, oh no, it's foreign trade, right?
I mean, when you dehumanize things that much,
that's horrible.
That's horrible. Anyways.
Yeah.
Right. And then, now this is where it gets really interesting. He helps establish, he's one of the founders of the Bank of England.
Yeah, and he not only establishes it, he was the director of the Bank of England until he fell out with his other board members and they kicked him out. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. A Scot helped set up the Bank of England. Now, at that point, Sir William Paterson decides to go back to Edinburgh. When he arrives in Edinburgh, it's time to go back and do the Darien scheme. And he arrives to this fertile soil of a desperate Scotland, hoping to not have to bow down to the English.
Right. Boys, I have tried to convince the English. They said no. I also went to the Dutch. They also said no. I went even as far as the Roman Catholic Empire. They said no.
The Pope himself said no.
The Pope himself looked me in the eye and said no. But I have faith in my people. My people are just desperate enough to say yes. Boys, print out the pamphlets. We're going in.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, man.
And here's the thing. I think that's really fascinating. Is from his time in the Bahamas.
Right.
And from having actually worked in trade there. Like he was a tradesman. He wasn't just some military guy.
No.
This guy really did know or believe that there was a very strong business proposition here. That if you were able to set up the lines, he really thought this could work. And we can see with the Panama Canal that the idea could have worked.
Dude, it was a brilliant idea. It was just ahead of its time. And the Panama Canal, which was, built about 200 or so years after, right, is today a feat of engineering. You're an engineer. You know this, that it took so much to get this done. And so if it had worked, if there had been proper planning, and that's why this is a harebrained scheme, because again, you look at all the big players, right, in global trade and global affairs and global politics at the time. The Spanish who owned this piece of land by, you know, just moving in and claiming it as their own and displacing local people, even they had kept clear of that area, right? The British, who we know it doesn't take much to get their interest and have them ride into a place and say, we claim this in the name of the king or queen, whatever, right? They were not messing with this portion of land at all either. The Roman Catholics, who were bent and, you know, expanding as well, they were also not touching it. That should have told you that there is a reason why nobody was going here. Nobody was going here.
Yeah.
But William Paterson was like, William Paterson was like, I'm going to be the man who does this, right? And it's just ridiculous because if he had done even the most cursory research, he would have found out, number one, that area.
Why no one is living there.
Right. Yeah. He would have found out, number one, that area, you couldn't grow anything. Nothing survived in that area. No food crops could survive in that area. But hey, you know, I guess research is for nerds, right? So research is for the nerds. So yeah, no, so yes, picking up from where you dropped it off, Sibel. So he goes to Scotland and he starts this campaign, and he convinces everyone, and I mean everyone, Sibel, from the aristocracy to people who had only like £5 to their name, right? To donate. So he did a GoFundMe, right? He's the first, he does a pretty decent GoFundMe. And dude, at the end of this, he gets £400,000, which in today's money is equivalent to 53 million pounds or thereabout. Yes. And not only that at the time was equivalent to over 20% of the entire Scottish GDP, right? It was equivalent to over 20% of all the money that Scotland had.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
We already told you they weren't doing great, right? They had just suffered, you know, about a decade of continuous, you know, hardship. So by this time, Scotland was broke. And so they were
betting it all, man. They were betting it all.
Yes. This was the Hail Mary. This was the last ditch effort and say, look at the East India Company, right? Owned by the English, right? They're doing great, right? They're doing slaves. They're doing trade. They're doing conquering and colonization. We need to get into that game as well. And if one of our sons is telling us that the way we do that is to form a company called the Scottish Company, right, or the Scotland Company, and we're going to get into the colonization game, then everyone wants a piece of that action. Everyone. Right. So, yeah.
Quick note here. He basically went in, he realized that under the rules that Scotland had with England, there were a lot of things Scotland could not do, but there was a loophole that allowed it to set up a private company like the East India Company and create a colony. So that's what he was doing. And that's what Bibi was just saying right there.
Yes. But if you're the East India Company, now let's also take another look at what was going on in this period of time. Now, today, capitalism is, everyone knows what that is. And that's kind of like, you know, that's generally accepted, right? That's what it is. We operate in a sort of environment of capitalism. All right. Okay. We get that. In that time, they operated something that was called mercantilism. All right. So what that was the concept. So unlike with capitalism, where it's like, if you want to play in the market, all you have to do and get them, you know, you can expand the market. You get me, Sibel? It's like the market has room to grow. You can create new markets, right? You can do a blue ocean strategy. You can capture people who were not being previously served by the market. You get me? In mercantilism, however, the concept was that the market was a fixed entity. And so any new players were not going to expand the market, but they were going to cut into your share of the market. Because again,
Right.
the market was this fixed thing, right?